The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is a transformative guide to spiritual awakening and living a life of peace and presence. In this book, Tolle emphasizes the importance of being fully present in the moment, free from the constant distractions of the mind. He introduces the concept of the ego as the source of much human suffering and guides readers towards transcending it. By letting go of attachments to the past and future, Tolle teaches us how to experience the world with clarity, awareness, and deep inner peace. The book is not just a spiritual treatise, it's a practical roadmap for anyone looking to find serenity amidst the chaos of everyday life. Welcome to Audiobook World, where we bring the profound wisdom of the world's best books to your ears. Whether you read on a long drive, during your daily workout, or relaxing at home, our channel is designed to offer you insightful, well-narrated audiobook summaries that are easy to absorb. In Audiobook World, we dive deep into key concepts, simplifying complex ideas and making them accessible to everyone. We believe that listening to books can open new doors of knowledge, and our mission is to share these life-changing ideas with you, one audiobook at a time. Chapter 1: You Are Not Your Mind. In the opening chapter of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle invites us to challenge our ingrained beliefs about the mind and its role in our lives. He begins by explaining that the mind is not who we truly are. Most people live as though they are their thoughts, constantly wrapped up in the endless flow of mental chatter. This identification with the mind causes us to feel disconnected from the present moment, making us slaves to the past and future. Tolle emphasizes that the mind is a tool meant to serve us, not to control us. However, when we allow ourselves to become consumed by our thoughts, we forget the essence of who we truly are, pure consciousness, the observer of these thoughts. Our thoughts are often driven by the ego, which constantly seeks validation and recognition, leading to emotional turmoil and conflict. He explains that our constant attachment to the past, regrets, resentments, or nostalgia, and our anxiety about the future, worries, fears, or anticipations, keeps us from living in the present. Tolle encourages us to become aware of the present moment, to stop living in the story our minds tell us, and to shift our focus inward. A key practice Tolle introduces is to observe our thoughts without judgment. Rather than identifying with them, we should see them as transient events that come and go. This act of watching our thoughts creates a separation between the self and the mind, allowing us to experience stillness and inner peace. This awareness of the present, which Tolle refers to as presence, is where true spiritual awakening begins. By learning to recognize that we are not our thoughts, we open ourselves to a deeper state of being, one that transcends mental patterns and brings us into alignment with the present moment. Chapter 2: Consciousness, the Way Out of Pain. In the second chapter of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle explores the concept of consciousness and its power to free us from emotional and psychological pain. Tolle introduces the idea that pain, whether physical or emotional, is often rooted in our attachment to the past and the future. When we cling to past experiences, whether positive or negative, we carry their emotional weight, and this weight manifests as pain. Similarly, our fears and anxieties about the future also trap us in a state of suffering. Tolle reveals that pain is not just an external force, but something we unconsciously create by identifying with our emotions and thoughts. This identification with pain forms what Tolle calls the pain body. The pain body is an energetic entity that feeds on negative emotions and thrives on our attachment to past wounds. It exists within us as a part of the ego, and when triggered, it creates a cycle of suffering that is hard to break. The key to breaking free from this cycle, Tolle explains, is to become aware of the pain body and to disassociate from it. Rather than allowing ourselves to be consumed by it, we must observe it with consciousness. By doing so, we create a gap between our true selves and the pain body, and this awareness allows the pain to dissolve. This practice of witnessing our pain without judgment or identification is the pathway to liberation. Tolle emphasizes that true healing comes when we learn to live fully in the present moment. The power of now, the present moment, is where consciousness resides. By anchoring ourselves in the present, we are able to transcend the pain body and begin the process of spiritual awakening. Only through conscious awareness can we break free from the grip of pain and find peace within ourselves. This chapter teaches us that consciousness is the key to healing emotional wounds, releasing pain, and living a life of freedom. It's not the absence of pain that matters, but how we choose to respond to it through awareness, presence, and non-attachment. Through this, we can finally experience the joy of living fully in the present, free from the weight of past and future pain. Chapter 3. Moving deeply into the now. In the third chapter of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle delves deeper into the practice of living fully in the present moment. He stresses that the present moment is the only place where life truly exists. The past and future are mere concepts created by the mind, and by constantly dwelling on them, we miss the fullness of the experience that is available to us right now. Tolle encourages us to move beyond the mind's constant chatter and begin to sense the aliveness of the present. This awareness is a shift from thinking to being. It involves being fully present in every action, whether it's walking, eating, or simply breathing. By fully immersing ourselves in whatever we are doing, without distraction or attachment, we can begin to experience a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. One of the key concepts introduced in this chapter is the idea of the now being an entry point to higher states of consciousness. Tolle explains that when we are fully present, we become aware of something beyond the mental realm, a deep, still consciousness that transcends our ordinary thinking mind. This state of awareness allows us to access a profound sense of inner peace, beyond the turbulence of the mind. Tolle also emphasizes the importance of surrendering to the present moment, rather than trying to resist or control it. Resistance to what is happening now creates suffering. By accepting the present moment as it is, without judgment or expectation, we move into a state of inner harmony. This acceptance does not mean passivity or complacency. Rather, it's a conscious alignment with the flow of life as it unfolds. Living in the now also involves being aware of our body. Tolle highlights the importance of connecting with the body, as it is a powerful anchor to the present moment. By focusing on physical sensations and becoming aware of the body's aliveness, we are brought back into the now and out of the mental distractions that keep us trapped in the past or future. This chapter offers practical tools for experiencing the present moment more fully and finding peace within it. By consciously moving into the now, we free ourselves from the tyranny of the mind and experience life in its purest form, alive, vibrant, and in harmony with the universe. Chapter 4. Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. In Chapter 4 of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle explores the various strategies the mind uses to avoid the present moment. He explains that the mind is constantly seeking distractions, whether in the form of thoughts, worries, or desires, in order to keep us from being fully present. This constant mental activity is an attempt to avoid the stillness and peace that comes with the present moment. Tolle reveals that the mind operates by focusing on either the past or the future. By dwelling on past events or worrying about what's to come, we are never truly here, in the now. This is a form of escapism, where the mind convinces us that there is something more important than the present moment. We get trapped in thought patterns, often attached to unresolved emotions or unfulfilled desires. The mind also seeks to maintain the illusion of control by planning and organizing everything around us. It believes that, if we can plan for the future or analyze the past, we will be able to manage life better. However, Tolle points out that this constant mental activity only serves to reinforce the illusion of control, which ultimately creates more stress, anxiety, and a feeling of disconnection from the present. Another strategy the mind uses to avoid the now is the creation of an identity or ego. The ego defines itself by the stories we tell about ourselves, our past experiences, our roles in life, our possessions, and our relationships. The ego keeps us trapped in a false sense of self, which is constantly being reinforced by the mind. This false identity keeps us from realizing our true essence, which exists beyond the mind and the ego. Tolle encourages us to observe these mental strategies without judgment. By becoming aware of how the mind attempts to escape the present moment, we can begin to disengage from these thought patterns. Rather than identifying with our thoughts or trying to control them, we can simply witness them as they come and go. This creates a space between our true self and the mind, allowing us to experience the peace and stillness that lies within. Through this awareness, we begin to realize that the mind, while useful, is not who we are. The present moment, free from the distractions of the mind, is where our true essence resides. By recognizing and releasing these strategies for avoiding the now, we can learn to live more fully and authentically in the present. This chapter emphasizes that the key to breaking free from the mind's control is to become deeply aware of how it keeps us from being present, and to choose presence instead. Chapter 5. The State of Presence. In Chapter 5 of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle delves into the concept of presence, explaining how it is the key to experiencing the fullness of life. Presence is the state of being fully connected with the now, without the interference of thoughts or mental distractions. It is a state of pure awareness where you are conscious of yourself and your surroundings without judgment or attachment to the past or future. Tolle explains that true presence is not something you can achieve through effort or willpower. It is a natural state of being that exists beyond the mind. It is the essence of who you are when you are not identified with your thoughts, emotions, or ego. In this state, you are fully in tune with life as it unfolds in the present moment. To experience presence, Tolle suggests becoming more aware of your inner state and the sensations in your body. Your body is the gateway to the now, and by focusing on the physical sensations you feel, whether it's the feeling of your breath or the weight of your body, you can shift your awareness away from the mind and into the present moment. This practice of body awareness allows you to quiet the constant chatter of the mind and experience stillness and peace. Tolle emphasizes that presence is not a passive state, it is a vibrant and active awareness. When you are present, you are completely engaged with whatever you are doing, whether it's something as simple as eating or as complex as solving a problem. In this state of awareness, you transcend the ego and experience life from a place of deep connection and harmony. The chapter also addresses the importance of acceptance. True presence can only occur when you accept the present moment as it is, without resistance. When we resist what is happening, we create suffering. By surrendering to the now, accepting it fully, and letting go of the need to control, we allow ourselves to experience the peace that exists in the present. Tolle encourages readers to practice presence in daily life. By observing the present moment with awareness, without judgment or distraction, we can begin to experience a deeper state of consciousness. As we cultivate presence, we start to realize that we are not our thoughts, emotions, or past experiences, we are the consciousness behind them. This realization is the gateway to spiritual awakening and true inner peace. In this chapter, Tolle invites us to experience life as it is, not through the lens of past memories or future anxieties, but through the clarity and stillness of the present. Presence is not just a state of being, it is the doorway to freedom, inner peace, and enlightenment. Chapter 6: The Inner Body. In Chapter 6 of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle takes us deeper into the experience of the present moment by guiding us to become more aware of our inner body. He explains that most people live in their heads, constantly thinking, analyzing, and identifying with the mind. However, true awareness and presence are not limited to mental processes, they also include the body. Tolle invites us to shift our attention away from thoughts and emotions and to focus on the sensations in our body. This practice of feeling the inner body allows us to move beyond the mental chatter and connect with the aliveness that exists within us. The inner body is the sense of vitality, energy, and consciousness that is felt in every cell of the body, even in the most subtle areas. By becoming aware of the inner body, we begin to experience a deeper connection with ourselves and the present moment. Tolle emphasizes that this awareness is not a mental activity but a felt experience. It is about sensing the body from within, without labeling or analyzing. This practice can be done anywhere, whether sitting, standing, or walking, and it brings us into direct contact with the present moment. The inner body is also a powerful anchor to the now. When we focus on the sensations within our body, we break free from the constant flow of thoughts that often pull us into the past or future. The body becomes a bridge to the present, helping us stay grounded and aware. Tolle also discusses how the mind tends to resist this kind of awareness. The ego is always seeking distractions and wants to keep us identified with thoughts and emotions. But by regularly bringing our attention to the inner body, we create a space between ourselves and the ego, allowing us to experience a deeper sense of peace and stillness. This chapter teaches us that the key to spiritual awakening is not just about quieting the mind, but also about awakening the body. By tuning into the energy and sensations within us, we align ourselves with the present moment and transcend the limits of the thinking mind. The experience of the inner body is a form of presence that can be cultivated in daily life. Whether you are working, resting, or interacting with others, you can always return to the awareness of your inner body to stay grounded in the now. It's a simple yet powerful practice that invites us to fully experience life, not through thoughts, but through the aliveness of the body, and the stillness that it offers. Chapter 7. Portals into the Unmanifested. In Chapter 7 of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle introduces the concept of the unmanifested, a state of pure being that exists beyond the physical world and beyond our thoughts. He explains that, while most people are only aware of the external world, there is a deeper, formless reality that underlies everything. This unmanifested is the source of all creation, the stillness from which life emerges. Tolle describes portals, pathways that allow us to access this deeper dimension of existence. These portals are moments, or practices that help us disconnect from the mind's constant chatter and enter a state of pure presence. One of the most powerful portals is silence. When we sit in stillness and let go of mental noise, we become aware of the deep, peaceful presence that exists beyond our thoughts. Another portal is awareness of the inner body. As discussed in the previous chapter, focusing on the subtle energy within us helps quiet the mind and bring us into direct contact with the unmanifested. Similarly, deep sleep is another way we unknowingly enter this state. When we sleep without dreaming, we temporarily return to the formless source of life. However, the goal is to become conscious of this state rather than experiencing it unconsciously. Tolle also explains that surrender is a powerful way to access the unmanifested. When we fully accept the present moment, without resistance, fear, or judgment, we dissolve the barriers created by the mind. This surrender allows us to experience life in its purest form, beyond suffering and beyond time. Death, he says, is the ultimate portal. While most people fear it, Tolle describes death as simply a transition from the physical to the formless. When we deeply connect with the unmanifested in our daily lives, the fear of death dissolves because we realize that our true essence is beyond the body and beyond the mind. This chapter teaches us that reality is much deeper than what we see, hear, or think. By using these portals, silence, presence, surrender, and inner awareness, we can connect with the vast, timeless stillness that exists within us. This connection is not just an escape from suffering, it is the very essence of enlightenment. Chapter 8. Enlightened Relationships. In Chapter 8 of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle explores how presence can transform our relationships. He explains that most relationships are based on ego, attachment, and unconscious emotional patterns. Because people are rarely present, they project past wounds, expectations, and fears onto their partners, leading to conflict and suffering. Tolle introduces the idea that true love is not about fulfilling personal desires or seeking completion in another person. Instead, love is the natural state of being that arises when we are fully present. Most relationships are based on neediness, the idea that another person will make us happy or complete. However, this is an illusion created by the ego, which constantly seeks fulfillment from external sources. One of the biggest obstacles to healthy relationships is the pain body. Each person carries emotional wounds from the past, and when triggered, these wounds resurface, causing arguments and emotional suffering. Tolle explains that partners often unconsciously feed each other's pain bodies, creating a cycle of blame, anger, and resentment. The only way to break free from this cycle is through awareness. When we become conscious of our pain body and observe it without identifying with it, its power over us weakens. Tolle also discusses the difference between love and attachment. True love is rooted in presence, whereas attachment is rooted in fear, the fear of loss, loneliness, or not being enough. Many relationships are based on unconscious dependency, where partners seek to possess or control each other. But real love allows freedom. It is not about needing someone, but about sharing presence with them. The key to an enlightened relationship, according to Tolle, is to bring awareness into the relationship. This means being fully present with the other person, listening without judgment, and observing rather than reacting when conflicts arise. When both partners are conscious, the relationship becomes a space for growth, healing, and deep connection. Tolle also reminds us that the most important relationship is the one we have with ourselves. If we are not present with ourselves, if we are constantly lost in thoughts, emotions, or past traumas, then we will bring that same unconsciousness into our relationships. But when we cultivate presence within, we naturally create healthier, more harmonious connections with others. This chapter teaches us that love is not something we get from another person, it is something we become when we are fully present. By bringing awareness into our relationships, we can transcend emotional pain, break free from unconscious patterns, and experience love in its purest form, as a state of being. Chapter 9. Beyond happiness and unhappiness, there is peace. In Chapter 9 of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle challenges the traditional idea of happiness and unhappiness. He explains that most people seek happiness as an emotional high, something that depends on external conditions, success, relationships, achievements, or material possessions. However, this kind of happiness is temporary because it is always followed by its opposite, unhappiness. The constant cycle of pleasure and pain keeps people trapped in emotional ups and downs. Tolle introduces the idea that true peace lies beyond both happiness and unhappiness. Peace is not an emotional state that comes and goes, it is a deeper presence that remains unchanged regardless of external circumstances. This peace arises when we detach from the mind's tendency to label experiences as good or bad and instead surrender completely to the present moment. He explains that suffering comes from resistance to what is. When we reject or fight against the reality of the present moment, we create unnecessary pain. The ego thrives on resistance. It always wants things to be different, constantly seeking something better or fearing something worse. But when we stop resisting and accept the now as it is, a deep peace arises within us. Tolle also explores the illusion of control. Most people believe that if they can just control their external world, relationships, careers, financial situations, they will find lasting happiness. But since life is constantly changing, this search for external stability leads to frustration and suffering. True inner peace comes not from controlling life but from surrendering to it, fully embracing whatever arises in the present moment. This doesn't mean we become passive or stop working toward goals. Instead, Tolle encourages us to act from a state of presence rather than from fear, desire, or resistance. When we align with the now, our actions become more effective because they come from a place of clarity and acceptance rather than anxiety or compulsion. He also differentiates between pain and suffering. Pain is a natural part of life, whether physical or emotional, but suffering is a mental construct created by resistance and identification with pain. When we fully accept pain without identifying with it, it loses its grip on us. The key message of this chapter is that peace is always available, regardless of external situations. By shifting our focus from seeking happiness to being present, we move beyond the highs and lows of emotions and enter a state of deep, unshakable inner peace. This peace is not dependent on circumstances, it is the essence of who we are when we are fully awake in the now. Chapter 10. The Meaning of Surrender. In the final chapter of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle explores the concept of surrender, not as weakness or giving up, but as the ultimate key to inner peace and spiritual freedom. He explains that true surrender means accepting the present moment completely, without resistance, fear, or judgment. When we stop fighting against reality and align ourselves with what is, we enter a state of deep peace and stillness. Tolle emphasizes that most suffering comes from resisting what is happening in the present. The mind always wants things to be different, it clings to the past, worries about the future, or fights against the present circumstances. This resistance creates tension, stress, and emotional pain. But when we let go of resistance and simply allow life to unfold as it is, we find freedom. Surrender doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. It doesn't mean we stop taking action or working toward goals. Instead, it means acting from a place of inner peace rather than fear or struggle. When we surrender, we don't waste energy resisting or overthinking. We accept what is and respond to life's challenges with clarity and presence. Tolle introduces the idea that surrender is closely linked to trust. When we truly surrender, we trust life itself, we trust that whatever is happening is meant to be, even if we don't fully understand it in the moment. This trust dissolves fear and anxiety, allowing us to flow with life instead of against it. He also distinguishes between outer surrender and inner surrender. Outer surrender means accepting external situations that we cannot change, while inner surrender means letting go of mental resistance, emotional pain, and attachment to control. Both forms of surrender lead to deep freedom and peace. Tolle explains that the ego sees surrender as defeat because the ego thrives on struggle and conflict. But when we surrender, we transcend the ego and experience life from a higher state of consciousness. We no longer see ourselves as victims of circumstances but as conscious participants in the unfolding of the present moment. In the end, surrender is about saying yes to life, embracing whatever comes with openness and acceptance. It is the doorway to true liberation. When we stop resisting life and fully immerse ourselves in the now, we discover that peace, joy, and fulfillment were never something to chase, they were always here, waiting for us in the present moment. As we reach the end of the power of now, we are left with a profound realization: true freedom, peace, and fulfillment are not found in the past or the future, but in the present moment. Eckhart Tolle's words guide us toward a deeper understanding of life, showing us that our suffering is not caused by external circumstances, but by our own resistance to the now. Through this journey, we have explored how the mind keeps us trapped in endless cycles of worry, fear, and desire, and how we can break free by embracing presence. This book teaches us that enlightenment is not some distant goal, but a state of being that is always accessible. It is not about escaping the world, but about fully immersing ourselves in it, with awareness and acceptance, by surrendering to the now, by observing our thoughts without becoming them, and by connecting with the stillness within. We can experience a deeper sense of inner peace. These lessons are not just philosophical ideas. They are practical tools that we can apply in our daily lives, whether in our relationships, our work, or simply in the way we experience each moment. At Audiobook World, our goal is to bring powerful ideas to life, making them accessible to everyone who seeks knowledge and transformation. Books have the power to change perspectives, to open minds, and to guide us toward personal growth. Through our audiobooks, we strive to make learning effortless, allowing you to absorb wisdom, whether you are driving, working out, or simply relaxing. This journey through the power of now is just one step toward a more mindful and conscious life. There are countless other books, filled with insights, waiting to be explored. If this audiobook resonated with you, we invite you to continue your journey with us, discovering more ideas that challenge, inspire, and transform. Thank you for being part of Audiobook World. Keep listening, keep learning, and most importantly, stay present.